أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم افتح علينا حكمتك وانشر علينا رحمتك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام رب زدنا علما أجمعين اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم ألهمنا رشدنا وأعذنا من شرور أنفسنا اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We will be studying the second chapter. It's actually a series of uh, chapters that we'll be having. There are 4 of them. So this is actually to help us to get closer to the Quran and understand how to approach the Quran. Because most of you wanted me to have this session in English. Even in the group I did ask today, so it was a unanimous thing. So we'll be having this in English only. All right. So last time the first session was based on the success, the conditions of success, and we did go through Surah Al-Asr. In Surah Al-Asr, there are the conditions for the success, the 4 conditions for the success that we did study. Today we're going to go ahead and see that as per the Quran, that how Quran addresses character building and what is the highest good. So the 4 things, 4 conditions that were for the success: Iman, Amal Salihat, Tawasi bil Haq, Tawasi bil Sabr. And all of this, time is the witness to all of this, and Allah takes the oath of time that those who have these 4 things, they are successful, and those who do not have this, they are not successful. With respect to the righteousness, with respect to the uh, human goodness, there are 2 concepts that we find in our society. One concept is the religious definition of a goodness, and another is the ethical, or we can say the secular concept or secular definition of goodness. What does it mean? For example, to certain types of people, certain types of individuals, doing the religious work, for example, praying on time, doing zakat, giving zakat, or performing Hajj, these are the things that define goodness. And with respect to the other set of people that we find in the society, they would say that these things are individual. Praying is individual, or charity is individual. The main thing is you have to be a good person in your dealings. You have to speak the truth. You have to be a good husband. You have to pay taxes on time. You don't have to harm anyone. You don't have to speak the lies. So there are 2 types of people, 2 types of concepts and definitions that we find in the society with respect to the goodness. So the question in front of us is that what actually is goodness as per Islam and as per Quran? What does Islam call as a good act, or what does the Quran call as a good person? And today, inshallah, what we will be doing with this is we'll be building a character of a good person as per the teachings of the Quran. We're going to go ahead and see that who does Quran qualify as the good person. So if we had to do the character building of a person, so try to understand this in terms of a building. The building has foundation, then there is first floor, second floor, and like that. So exactly in the same way, we're going to go ahead and construct the personality of a good person as per the Quran. And we're going to see that what are the activities, or what is a goodness in a person. And this concept of goodness, in, you'll say the term also used in English, enlightenment, that was summum bonum, the highest good that has always been the topic of research or topic of discussion among the philosophers, among the scholars, what is the highest good? So in this context, we're going to go ahead and look at ayat number 177 of Surah Al-Baqarah, which is also known as Ayatul Bir. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ليس البر أن تولوا وجوهكم قبل المشرق والمغرب ولكن البر من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر والملائكة والكتاب والنبيين وآتى المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين وفي الرقاب وأقام الصلاة وآتى الزكاة والموفون بعهدهم إذا عاهدوا والصابرين في البأساء والضراء وحين البعث أولئك الذين صدقوا وأولئك هم المتقون. This is just one ayat. So you can see that this ayat is already more than 3 times, I would say, than Surah Al-Asr. So our first lesson was actually based on a complete surah, which was based on 3 ayats. So it was a complete surah. So this lesson today is actually based on just one ayat. And you can see that one ayat is already, in terms of number of words, is already bigger than Surah Al-Asr. Now, first we'll look at the translation, the basic translation, then I'll try to go ahead and explain this further to you. Laysal birra, righteousness or goodness or the virtue is not antwallu wujuhakum, that you turn your faces qibal al-mashriq, towards mashriq, that's the east, wal maghrib, or the west. Walakin al-birra, but righteousness or the virtue is man amana billah, is to believe in Allah. Wal yawmil akhir, and the last day, that's the day of judgment. Wal malaika, and the angels. Wal kitab, and the books. Wal nabiyyin, and the prophets. Wa atal mala, and giving or spending the money. Ala hubbihi, even though you love it, despite its love. Zawil qurba, among your relatives, your qarabadar. Wal yatama, and the orphans. Wal masakin, and those who are needy. Wabna sabil, and the wayfarer. Was-sa'ilin, and those who ask. Wafir riqab, and uh, ransoming of the slaves. Wa aqama salat, and establishing the prayer or the salah. Wa ata zakat, and paying the zakat. Wal mufuna bi ahdihim, and fulfilling the promises is a ahadu, when the pledges or the promises are made. Was sabirin, and particularly those who are patient. Fil ba'sa wad dara, during the hardships and the times of adversity. Wahin al bas, and during when there is a struggle between the truth and the falsehood. Ulaika allazina sadaqu, these are the truthful people. Wa ulaika humul muttaqun, and these are the actual ones who are muttaqi. Right in the first ayat of Surah Baqarah, we have ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ, that the Quran is the hidayat, as a book of guidance for the muttaqeen people, who have taqwa, who are conscious of God. And here in this ayat, right at the end, you have ulaika humul muttaqun. So these qualities, these attributes are of the those people who have taqwa. So this is the basic transition of this ayat. This can give us an idea that about what we're going to go ahead and study today about. Before this, the background of this ayat is that this was actually tahwil qibla, when the qibla got changed from Baitul Maqdis to Mecca, that's Kaaba. So that was changed. So Muslims were being uh, the Jews and the other people who were living in Medina. So they were making allegations against the Muslims that what kind of religion is this? That first the Qibla is towards one place and now it gets changed. So in this ayat, that there is a certain religious psychology that is associated with the society or with the people. And what happens is with those such of people, it's all about getting caught in the details, like getting caught in the technicalities and the rituals. So in this ayat, that psychology is being negated. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Laysal birra. The word is birrun. Birrun means righteousness, neki, virtue. And if you see that Laisa is a negation, right? So this ayat starts with a negation. Like our kalima tayyiba. Our kalima also starts with a negation. La ilaha illallah. It starts with negation, negating something, and then presenting the positive thing. So exactly this ayat has a similar pattern here. That there is a negation. It starts with a negation. Laisa. And Laisa means it's not. Albir is righteousness, and it is a masdar. It's a noun, but it is mansub, right? It is mansub. So by this we understand that this is actually the khabar of Laisa. Just like kana, we have ismu kana, which is marfu, and khabaru kana is mansub. So in the same way, we have Laisa, whose ism is marfu and its khabar is mansub. So we understand that al bir here, because it's mansub, so this is actually the khabar. And its ism is antuwallu. Antuwallu is masdar mu'awwal. So masdar mu'awwal or a noun can be jumla ismiya, right? We start jumla ismiya with a noun or masdar mu'awwal. So masdar mu'awwal here is ismu laysa. So what happened here is that ismu laysa and khabaru laysa, and khabaru laysa is also definite here. Now we know the khabar is indefinite. By default, the khabar is always indefinite. Now, by all of these changes occurring here, it tells us that they have actually switched the places. So if the khabar is muqaddam and ism is ismu laysa or mubtada is muakhar, and they're switching the places. So what happens in this case is that the hasr is getting created. Hasr means restricting the meaning, and there are many ways to do it, where you restrict the meaning in the Arabic language. In English, you just use the word only. For example, if I say that Fatima, only Fatima is a doctor. One is Fatima is a doctor. Another is only Fatima is a doctor. By using the word only, what I did, I restricted the meaning of who the what Fatima is or who the doctor is. I restricted the meaning. I put a bracket. So in Arabic, there are multiple ways to do it. Just like we have in Surah Fatiha, we have Iyyaka na'budu. So what was the original sentence? Na'buduka. Na'budu, we worship we worship you. Verb comes first and its object comes next. But here what happened? Ka came first. Iyaka. Na'budu. So the hasr got created. So there are many ways to do that. So what happened here is in the similar way, the hasr got created. So laysal birra, it means that piety is not just this. So it's not that we are saying that piety, uh, what the basic concept of piety or virtue or the righteousness is, we're not negating that. We're saying that it's not just that. So when you say laysal birra, that piety is not just antuwallu, that you turn, so it's walla yuwallu, right? Tuwallu wujuhakum, that you turn your faces, qibal al-mashriq wal-maghrib. Righteousness or the virtue or the piety or the goodness is not only that you turn your faces towards east or towards west. Because some people would say that, like for example, as I said, that going into the technicalities of the things. So what we have this concept that is not negated. Allah did not say, if it was like a laysal birru, then it would simply mean that righteousness is not turning your faces towards right mashriq or the maghrib, right? And when we get up for salah, when we get up for praying, we turn our faces towards the Kaaba. So righteousness is not just that. Although it's not getting negated, it's not righteousness, but it's not just restricted to those concepts that are the traditional concepts of understanding of the goodness. So it doesn't get negated. So further Allah says, وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ. But the righteousness is man amana billah. So the first thing, and the first and the foremost thing in the righteousness that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about is iman. Amana billah, believing in Allah, having faith in Allah, right? So when this thing gets negated, that the things, for example, in our society, uh, if we have, if we perform the Hajj, all right? So performing the Hajj is not just rituals, it's not just the moving around the Kaaba doing the tawaf, those things are there. But at the same time, let's say a person is clicking selfies. So it doesn't go ahead and make any sense in that case, because the main sense of doing or performing that ritual is lost. So the sense of proportion has to be there in everything, right? There are things that have their apparent thing, the zahir of something, and there are things that have a batin of the activities that we do. So both go in hand in hand. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that piety and righteousness and the goodness is not just that you turn your faces to east or to west, but the piety is, the first thing is there is believing in Allah, wal yawm al akhir, and the day of judgment, wal malaika, and the angels, wal kitab, and the books, and the prophets. And then the list goes on. So we'll just look at the first portion of it. Now, if you would give it a thought, normally we associate goodness, right? We associate virtue with doing some action. So that's what we would generally say. We'll say a good thing is that doing something, doing some activity. But here Allah is actually talking about first iman. He's actually going ahead and talking the first thing that comes in the virtue and the piety is believing in Allah. So what here we understand is the first and the foremost thing to do an action, to do any activity or to do a goodness is to see that what is the intention behind doing it. What is the intention of doing it? And that is the first thing that is addressed here. Because if you see that many of the great scholars, they would also say, they would say that if you have a why, like Friedrich Nietzsche, he was an atheist of the classical Western liberalism. Uh, he did not believe in God, but he said, I had his quote here: "Only who has a why can endure anyhow." And you need to have a why. Why are you doing what you're doing? If you have that why, you have that motivation. What is the motivation behind doing something? What is your motivation to do anything? What is your motivation to be good? What is your motivation to speak the truth? What is your motivation to do something? And you need to have that why. So if you have that why, you can endure anyhow. So the first and the foremost thing that is addressed in the ayat is why, is answering of the why. There is an answer to the why. Why are we doing something is because we're doing it to please our God. We're doing it to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, I told you that we're here going to be building a human personality here. We're going to do the character building of a good person. So you must have seen that in your neighborhood or anywhere, that when they construct a building, when they construct a big building, a huge one, so what they do first is they do fencing. They do fencing and they go ahead and dig the ground deeper, 7, 8 floors down. And they're doing something there for so many months all together. We don't see from as an outsider, when we look at it, it's totally fenced. And we do not see that what is going on there. What are they doing is they're building the foundation. And that foundation we do not see. The foundation is something that we do not see. And then once that foundation is completed, after 7 months, 8 months, or whatever time frame it takes, within no time the building gets created. So exactly the same way is a human personality, human character, in the same way gets built. That there is a sense wherein you got to have its foundation very strong. And that foundation you do not see. You do not see that foundation. And that foundation is Iman. That is the foundation. And that has to be very strong. Why it has to be strong? Let's say, for example, you look at a tree. A tree is beautiful because of its fruits you see on it. You see a beautiful tree because of its beautiful flowers and so many branches. But then this beauty of the tree is all based on its foundation, that are the roots. You appreciate the tree. You see the tree is beautiful. It's got lovely fruits. It's got a soothing shade that we sit under. But that would have been impossible if its roots were not strong enough. Because the moment storm comes, it would go ahead and take the tree away. It will go ahead and the building will just fall if the foundation is not strong. And the first thing and the foremost thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in building the character of a good person is that foundation, and that is the iman. And you will see towards the end of this ayat that storm does come. That storm also comes there, that's addressed towards the end. We'll connect it to the first portion of the ayat when we inshallah reach there. So the first thing that's addressed is the foundation, and that is iman. Now, if you see another, look at it from another aspect, that we have in walakinnal birra. Now, al bir, as I already told you, is what? It is a masdar, it is a noun, right? It's a verbal noun. And man is means it's and who, the one who. So literally, if you go ahead and translate walakinnal birra, it will mean the goodness is the one who believed in Allah. Instead, why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not use the word barun? Barun is the active participle of this word. That means why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say walakin al bara, but the good person is man amana billah, the one who believed in Allah. Try to understand what I'm trying to say. I'll repeat. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say that the good person is the one who believes in Allah, believes in last day, believes in, and the list goes on. He didn't say the good person is the one. He said the goodness is the one who believed in Allah. Why did he say that? Why is the mastar used here instead of ismul fa'il? It means here actually that goodness is actually an idea, right? That person is not just good, it is his goodness walking around. And that is how the goodness looks like. So when those people, they carry these attributes, they become the role models for others. Now, these attributes, what are those attributes in the person? We're going to go ahead and think of a building, that construction going on, right? Completely fenced, and you can't see that. Now, the foundation of that is iman. Now, the sequence here is also important. If you see the sequence here, the first one where we are told about here, what's mentioned here is iman billah. And second is iman wal yawm al-akhir and malaika, kitab and nabiyyin. So the sequence also is important, because the prime motivation for a person to do any good thing, to do goodness, there has to be no other reason. First and the primary reason has to be to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to please his creator, to have the right intentions behind doing a good deed. So intention is the first thing that's mentioned here. The revolution that was brought by Prophet ﷺ, the first and the foremost thing, the main thing that was targeted was the qalb, the heart. So whenever intention behind, see, any person who does a good act, good activity, or does goodness, atheists also do good things. Other people belonging to other communities and other religions, they spend so much on charities and good activities that they do. But there's a motivation behind it. There is an intention behind it, why we're doing that. Everyone has a motivation and an intention behind it. And in Islam, this intention is focused too much. That your intention has to be to please your creator, to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the reason why you see, like the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when we go ahead and take their name, what we say radiyallahu an. What's the meaning of radiyallahu? And so dua we make, may Allah be pleased with them. Why we say that? Because the activities, that the deeds that they did, it was only to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we say radiyallahu an. So But there could be some people who are not on that level, who do not have, because this is the highest level of intention, who are not on that level wherein they will do everything for the sake of, who are not yet on that level. That is something for us to achieve, to reach that level. Allahumma jalla minhum. But there could be some that who will just be doing some good deeds, good activities for some reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the second thing that's mentioned here is al yawm al akhir, that belief in the day of judgment. That means that I'm doing a good activity, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give me a jannah. He's going to give me jannat. So I'm going to do this. And some people will go ahead and do good deeds just to save themselves from the torment of hell. That is also a motivation. Just like we say, if there are kids, and we will not make them understand that if we go ahead and study well in the examination, if you study well in the examination, you're going to have a wonderful career. You're going to have a good job tomorrow. They might not understand that at the age of, like, when they're teenagers. They will not understand. So what do the parents do? The parents tell them, if you go ahead and study, I'm going to go ahead and get XYZ thing for you. So they incentivize it, you incentives. But is the purpose of a parent to go ahead and give them uh, toy or any such thing? That's not the purpose behind. That's just to go and to incentivize. But the purpose is that he will have a beautiful future. So the kid might not be on that level to understand that. So you can go ahead and think on a similar level. Like, the actual purpose is to go ahead and please the Allah. But yes, some of us might not be on that level to go ahead, and that might not be that much of motivation for many people. That's bigger for them. Maybe they're just still on the lower level. But yes, that's a goal to reach there. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He's Ar-Rahim. He gives us Jannah for that. He gives us Jannah to go ahead and perform the good deeds. So that can act as a motivation for some. And if we talk about Yawmul Akhirah, that whatever we are doing in this dunya, and our motivation behind that is that we will be rewarded in the hereafter. If we go ahead and speak the truth, we'll be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in hereafter. If we go ahead and uh, stop ourselves from performing any bad activity, stop ourselves from performing haram activities, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to prevent us from going to the hellfire. And it makes sense. If a person who has lived a life of piety, who has abstained from all the sins, it makes sense. He is rewarded. And those who enjoyed those things in this world, it makes sense that they'll be punished there in the hereafter. It makes it totally logical. There was a philosopher in European Enlightenment. His name was Immanuel Kant. Immanuel Kant wrote a book. The book name was Critique of Pure Reason. Critique of Pure Reason talks about, that was his first book, Critique of Pure Reason. He said that we cannot prove the existence of God by reason and logic. He said we cannot, it's impossible to prove it. That God exists, we cannot prove it by our logic. It was written by, he wrote a comprehensive book on it, Immanuel Kant. But after a while, and this created a lot of uneasy society in Europe that time, because it was a religious society. Now you see most of these classic Western liberal philosophers, they were all theists. They all believed in God. It's just that this thing has come recently about negation of the God. So he said that it is impossible to prove the existence of God by pure logic. That was Critique of Pure Reason. But after a while, he wrote another book, Critique of Practical Reason, in which he said that if the moral law does not exist, then there is no God. And because the moral law exists, and that proves that God exists. Moral law means what? What's meant by moral law? Moral law, for example, I'll give a very easy and a simple way to understand it. Like, we all know, people from all religions, all communities, we know that speaking the truth is a good thing to do. Abstaining from lies, it's a good thing to do. We should not lie. But my question is, that why should we not lie if lying benefits me? If telling lies, if it's benefiting me, why should I not lie? Why should I speak the truth? So, because see, when the person lies, does it create any mouth disease? Does it create any disease in the tongue? If you say that speaking lies is wrong, but I don't see any effect in his mouth, I don't see his tongue getting any ulcer, the person who is lying. It's not happening. So, why should I speak the truth? So, that's where the moral law comes in. So, Immanuel Kant said that moral law comes from God, right? He said that since we are obliged to attain the summum bonum, that is the highest good, God must exist to ensure that we can achieve that which we're obliged to do. If we cannot attain the summum bonum on our own, we need help. Right? He said that moral law is impossible without God. He said that to make it simple for you, we would speak the truth because God tells us to speak the truth. And this thing is imprinted on us. This thing is within us. It's not that, see, everyone believes there is a moral law, whether you believe in God and you or you don't believe in God. But this argument that was used by Immanuel Kant to prove the existence of God, in Islam, we do not use this argument to prove the existence of God. We use this argument, a moral law, to prove the existence of the hereafter. That if you're doing a moral activity here, you will be rewarded in the hereafter. Otherwise, if we see that if a person lives a life of piety, but we see that he's suffering in this world, we see those who are truthful, they're suffering. Those who are living a life of abstaining from haram things, they're suffering in the world. And instead, if you find those people who are involved in haram activities, they're enjoying. Now, those who are logical, it doesn't fit in. Now, your reasoning tells you that there should be another world, there should be another life, wherein there is equality. Those who are doing good, what we consider as good, and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala confirms is that's good, they should be rewarded. And those who are doing bad, they should be punished for it. It's quite logical. So the logical conclusion of this is that the hereafter does exist. So we use the moral argument for the case of the hereafter. That is Yawm al-Akhirah, that the Yawm al-Akhirah exists because those who have done good, they should be rewarded. And is a logical conclusion of your reasoning. And so we have two things here mentioned. First, amana billah, and iman on the akhirah, on the day of judgment. And then there are three things that I mentioned, and these are actually one. This is actually one. Al malaika wal kitab nabiyyin. So as I told you in the beginning that we need to have a why. Why do we something? To please Allah, or why do we something? Because there is going to be hereafter. If you do good things, we're going to be rewarded. You're going to do bad things, you're going to be punished. So that's why. So the first two here are the why. All right, Iman billah and Iman bil akhirah. Now the question is, okay, I know that why I should do. I got my intentions pure for it. Now the question is, what should I do? Who's going to tell me what should I do? Who's going to tell me? It's the prophets are going to tell me what should I do. And if you see the sequence, I said the sequence is important. Now prophets, they are given wahi. That is the kitab. All right. And who gives them the kitab? They get it from the angels. So actually all three are one, and we call it as Iman bir Risalat. That is Iman on the Risalat. So in Surah Al-Asr, what we saw is Illa lazina amanu, those who believe. And here you have the three sub-branches of Iman. You have three sub-branches of Iman. That is, first one is Iman billah, second one is Iman bil akhirah, and the third one is Iman bil risalat. So there you had Iman mentioned in that, in just one word was there, and here we got the sub-branches here. All right. And furthermore, if you actually go ahead and see it further, Iman bil akhirah and Iman bil risala, is actually Iman Billah in itself. It's just the further elaboration of the same thing. How is that? That Iman bin Nubuwa, Iman bin Risala is what? Iman bin Risala is the manifestation of Sifat Hidayat. So Sifat Hidayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gets manifested in the form of Nubuwa, in the form of revelation. So Allah, we pray to Allah, Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. Oh Allah, guide us to the right path. So Allah gives us the guidance through what? Prophets. So it's a manifestation of Sifat Hidayat. And Sifat Adl gets manifested in Yawmul Akhirah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we don't use the word Adl, right? Adl is masdar. Only Asma wa Husna, the attribute of Allah, that has a masdar in it. So it's actually the same, right? This is just the further explanation of the same thing. So the first one here, the first line that we have here, وَلَكِنَّ الْبِرَّ مَنْ آمَنَ بِاللَّهِ وَالْيَوْمِ الْآخِرِ وَالْمَلَائِكَةِ وَالْكِتَابِ وَالنَّبِيِّينَ is all talking about Iman and its various branches. That are the three branches, which are actually the one, right? And then we come to the second. So this was our foundation, the main foundation. Now we come to the first floor. And the first floor we have وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ. So the verb is here one. There's only one verb here in this. That is wa'ata. This is the verb. There's only one verb. And then you have the list. And they spend the wealth. They spend the ala hubbihi, despite its love. See, this is acknowledged in Islam, that there is a love for the money that you have. There is a love for that. وَآتَ الْمَالَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, despite its love, despite loving money that you have earned, despite loving earnings, they spend it, zawil qurba. So the first and the foremost that I mentioned, see, we said that we know why. Now we are looking at what should we be doing, what is goodness here. So the first and the foremost thing is mentioned, insani hamdardi, right? It's the first thing is zawil qurba. They spend out of the love of their riches. They still spend it, zawil qurba, their relatives, especially those who are the nearer ones. Wal yatama, the orphans. Wal masakin. Masakin means those who have lost the those who have lost the will to do something. Those who are broken totally. Maskan, kam himmati, like we say. Wabn sabil, the wayfarer. Wasa'ilin wa fir riqab. So this is a complete wa fir riqab actually means uh, ransoming the necks, because in earlier times there used to be slavery, a lot of slavery. So ransoming and freeing the slaves was considered as a virtue, but nowadays we do not have. So in modern times, this will come under that somebody is under debt, or there is somebody is under loan and he's not able to pay it off. So that would come under this. So the point here is that the law of acquisition is understood and it's acknowledged in Islam. You earn money, you give a part of your life to earn that living. So it's not just that money that's in the bank. It's not just the money. You paid a part of your life to get that. So it's natural to have attachment to the assets. Now, giving that up is like giving up a part of you. That's the reason why you find in many places in the Quran uh, that your nafs and mal, these are the two things used together many times, that who go ahead and spend their lives and the mal in the way of Allah. They used together in many places in the Quran. You can see that in Surah Saf also. So here we are told about the recipients. Who are the recipients? Where to spend, right? You find that, as I told you, that people who do not believe in God, they also spend. They go ahead and spend in research, they go ahead and give the funds to the public charities and all. So this sequence again here is very important, because the first and foremost thing is to look among your relatives. And the problem we have is everyone has complaints with their relatives. And if there is somebody who is deserving uh, as the recipient, and just because we are not in good terms with them, we will not go ahead and give them anything which is against the teachings of the Quran. Even though we might not be in good terms with those people, but they're deserving to be the recipients of it. We have to go ahead and follow the teachings of the Quran, and we have to go ahead and give it to them. Now, if you truly, your intentions were pure, you're purely doing it for the sake of Allah and not for the show off or anything else, then you would definitely go ahead and do that. But if your intentions are not that, if your intentions are something else, then so that's where your intentions are going to be checked. So Allah is going to go ahead and test us and put us in various different situations. Now here we're actually talking about the complete personality, right? We're talking the complete personality. We might not be there in completion yet, but we had to strive to achieve that, right? So you have al yatama. Now here we're not just talking about a personality, a person, an individual. There's a sense of community also that's been talked about here, because the society knows its orphans. Al yatama means orphans, right? Society knows it's who those orphans are. If we just go to the masjid and we pray in the masjid and come home, don't talk to anyone, and there is no social engagement, the people do not have it written on their foreheads that this person is an orphan. How would we know that there is an orphan in the community? How do we know that? When there is a sense of engagement, we know that, all right, I did perform the janaza of his father or the mother, so we know that there is an orphan in our community. So you can see that there is a sense of engagement, a social engagement also been addressed here, also been talked about here. All right. So these teachings are not just individual teachings, right? So it's also that whether a community stands on goodness or not. This is what a community should accomplish. These are the things that even as a community we should accomplish, right? And then you have the next one, wal masakin, right? Masaka means to stop, and sakana would be stationary. So it's somebody who is stuck somewhere. They can't help themselves, right? Maybe somebody is in some sort of an abusive relationship, or any such thing. So that's what we say. Well, masakin wabna sabil would literally would mean the son of the path, like a road warrior, right? And you have a sa'ilin wa fir raqab. And if we know everyone in the community, we'll definitely find the unfamiliar faces in it. And then, as I told you in the beginning, that there is a definition, a religious definition of goodness, and there is an ethical or a secular definition of goodness. Now, if you see that so far, these وآت المال على حبه ذوي القربى واليتامى والمساكين وابن السبيل والسائلين في الرقاب, it sounds ethical, it sounds humanitarian. Now, some people would say that I don't have to pray. I'm just a nice guy. I don't have to pray salah to be good, right? I'm a good human being, right? I'm a good employee. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala next says, وَأَقَامَ الصَّلَاةِ وَآتَى الزَّكَاةِ. They established prayer, they established salah, wa zakah. Although you would say that all of these would be considered as charities and spending in the way of Allah, but you see that a zakah is specifically mentioned separately here. Wa aqama salah wa ata zakah. Wal mufuna bi ahdihim iza ahadu. And what they do is they keep their pledges, they keep their promises. Now, the promises in our society are implicit as well as explicit. If we honor this, if we honor the pledges that we have made, if we honor it, you will see that there will be a streamlined society will find. Because if you see an implicit pledge, there's an implicit pledge between, let's say, parents taking care of their kids. Let's say there are pledges, there are explicit pledges like nikah, the marriage. It's based on a promise. It's based on a pledge. You look at your employee and employer relationship. It's based on what pledge that the employee is going to go ahead and work to his complete hours, completely dedicated. So all these things are, and even if you take it to the even the higher level, like the president of the country, his job is to go and uh, take care of the nation, and in turn, the people living in that society are going to be the good citizens as a followers of the law. So if we go ahead and see the honoring of the promises and pledges, it's not just the promises and pledges we make with our friends that I'm going to go ahead and show up there on this time, and even we fail in that. But if you go ahead and look at it, the broader perspective, that there are implicit pledges, implicit promises, and explicit ones. If we go ahead and follow all of that, there will be a complete streamlining of our society in that case. Now, if you see, the next word here is wasabirin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not say as-sabirun. He did not say as-sabirun. As-sabirun would have been its marfu uh, form. So why do we have as-sabirin? So we know that if we have a mansub or a majroor noun, there would be something, there would be some reason why its case got changed from marfu, because marfu would be the default noun. So this tells us that there is something that is mehzuf here, that's implied here. And you find that, you know, commentaries filled with it, the tafsir filled with it, that as-sabirin is mentioned here instead of as-sabirun. So to make it very easy, that if we see that the first floor we had, this was our first floor, wa'at al-mal, and our second floor was wa'aqam as-salat, at zakat, and this line here, wa'aqam as-salat wa'at az-zakat wal mufuna bi ahadim iza ahadu. This was our second floor. And our third floor is was-sabirina fil ba'sa'i wad-dharra'i wa hina al-ba's. So they do sabr. They perform sabr. In the last one, we did find it in Surah Asr. وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. There was one word there. There was one word, وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. And you see that here, عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ is further explained here. What are the عَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ? These are these. And then we have وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ mentioned there. And here we have وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. وَبَأْس means, like we say, you must know this word, لَا بَأْس, no problem. So what's the meaning of bas? Problem, plural. Wal ba'sa, problems. When they are in problem, what kind of problems? We say faqr, like the hunger. What darra, adversity. When there is adversity, like there is some sort of a disease, a physical ailment, or it could be mental as well. It could be physical as well as mental, right? It could be both. So let's say what darra, it will mean that, which is quite common epidemic nowadays, which is people having depression and anxiety. Now, if you go ahead and live in the past, if you have the thoughts about your past, okay, this happened in the past, I lost this. So that's how the depression comes in, thinking about the past. And if you go ahead and think about the future, what's going to happen, that's when the anxiety is going to come in. So what we do in this case, how we go ahead and fight it out. I'll give a very simple formula. That is, and you should do this exercise, all of you. I'm going to give you an exercise to do. Now, what this exercise is, and listen to me carefully, that before you go to sleep, maybe 5 minutes before that, do this exercise, that for 30 seconds in the beginning, because obviously this exercise is not that easy that you might think, that for 30 seconds, what you will have to do is, don't bring any thought in your mind. Just keep your mind empty. But the moment you think about it, the thoughts are going to immediately come in your mind. So have your mind totally empty. Just like, for example, I'm sitting right now. I'm sitting in the room. Right now I am. So the clock is ticking. There's a noise there and the birds are chirping. So I'm in the present right now. I'm not having any thought of past or future. But you have to practice it in the beginning. As soon as a thought comes, you just take it out of your mind. So in the beginning, it might be difficult, but once you constantly do it for 1 week, then you'll see that you increase the time frame. First you do it for 30 seconds, then you do 45 seconds, then you do it for 1 minute, and increase that time. So if you do it for 1 minute or 2 minutes without having any thought come in your mind, you're already there. And you will see that or second thing you can also do is, you need to identify a person in your daily life who you talk to most. It could be your parents, It could be your spouse, it could be your boss, it could be your anybody in your office or anyone or someone you're talking on the phone most of the time. Identify that person in your daily life who you talk to the most in the day. And then what you do is when you talk to this person, do not be distracted with anything else. Just with full concentration, listen to that person and have a conversation with the person completely. No phones, no distractions, no looking here and there. Just fully concentrated and listening and getting into the conversation with that person. Now you'll see that when this kind of a thing change happens in your lifestyle. As I said, that this is not something that we read in the books. This is not something that I can go ahead and tell you and it's done. No, you had to practice it actually. You had to exercise it. And you will see that a drastic change in you. The moment you're going to, for this person, when he drinks water, has one glass of water, drinking water, he is in present. And the moment the water goes down his gulp, this will be a divine experience just to have the glass of water because you're in the present. When this person has a food, that will be a spiritual experience. Now imagine when this person is performing salah and he's all in present. It would just be that person has actually, reached the level of walis, I can tell you. Because see, when we perform salah, when we are praying, our mind is wandering here and there, right? So you got to practice that mindfulness. You got to practice that, and you'll see that وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about وَالضَّرَّاء, which will be the mental ailment or even the physical one, or the physical ailment, the mental one, because it's very difficult for us to go ahead and tackle the mental ailments. Mind wanders, depressions, anxiety is quite common. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says those who are as-sabirin. Why is it mansoob here? Is there is a verb that is mehzuf. We'll not go in that. It's simply I'll say that especially khususan, especially those who are sabirin. That means they are given a special preference. Yeah, they're given a special category here, especially as-sabirin. Those who are as-sabirin, those who are the patient ones. And you see the same word is here also used, wahin al-bas. So if the word was already here, al-basa. So remember this, when this word al-bas comes as plural, it will mean the faqr, like the financial problems. And when this comes as hain al-bas, hain means time, during the time of distress. This would actually mean during the times of wars or during the politically unstable phase, like we see right now in Palestine, for example, an unstabilized, destabilized state right now, politically unstable, wars going on. And during that time, wahin al-bas, those who are as-sabirun sabirin during that time. And we found that in Badr, for example. We found that in other occasions during the times of during the life of Prophet Sallallahu. In some other religions or in some other concepts, you might find that warfare or even defensive warfare is not considered any sort of a virtue. They will just talk about non-violence and all. But Islam does not go ahead and consider the defensive warfare or even an aggressive warfare. It doesn't consider that as a non-virtuous thing. If we can, but that's considered to be a part of it. But there are the stages that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, and there are rules and regulations about that. But when we are talking about a politically destabilized area or the society, in that case, doing the sabr is also a part of a goodness. Having the restraint is a part of the goodness. وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. And there is a chaos going on, and sabr in difficult times is considered as the highest of the virtues. Allah, so we are here talking about three floors. The foundation becomes very strong, has to be very strong, and the foundation is based on iman. And if we see that in our society, sometimes you see that, okay, you see this person, what is he doing? He's involved in immoral activities. He's a Muslim, but he's involved in immoral activities. Okay, you see these people, what they're doing. All of this are just the symptoms. The problem lies somewhere else. And we have to keep this in, we have to be very clear with our minds that we have to address the root cause of the problem, that is weakness of the iman. When the foundation is weak, the building is going to be weak. So when there are hard times coming, that's the storm I was talking about. You see, this is the storm. When the hard times come, If the foundation is not strong, the building is going to fall. If the roots of a tree are not strong, the tree is not not going to remain there. So the foundation has to be strong. If we go ahead and see something in the society that happens, just which we consider as this is not the right thing, that is just a symptom. The problem lies somewhere else. If we got to fix that symptom, we got to address the root cause, and that is what Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did during initial days of Makkah, right? Building on the iman of the companions. And that's something that we don't see. As I told you, that when the building is made for months together, we do not know what's happening because foundations are not seen, right? Foundations are below the ground and they're totally fenced. We do not see that. But there is a work going on. So that work we have to do on the iman. We have to build the foundation strong. If the foundation is strong, any problems come, any distresses come, any situation comes, uneasy situation, the person having these characteristics is going to withstand it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ulaika lazina sadaqu. These are the ones who are truthful. Wa ulaika humul muttaqun. And these are the muttaqun. Now, if you see this sentence here, it says Ulaika humul muttaqun. What kind of sentence is this? Where is the khabar of the sentence? Where is the mubtada? Ulaika is mubtada. Where is the khabar? The khabar here is again a jumla ismiya. That is humul muttaqun. And then you see al muttaqun is again definite. So this is again a hasr getting created here. That these are the ones that are muttaqun, and there's nobody outside this group that is muttaqun. So an hasr is again getting created here. Ulaika humul muttaqun. Yehi hai muttaqi, like we say. Those who have taqwa, those who are conscious of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And who is going to gain the guidance of the Quran? Right in the beginning, La raiba fi hudan lil muttaqin. That Quran is a guidance, is a hidayah for muttaqin. So the first person has to be on that level where he is ready to receive the guidance. So it has to be the muttaqi, and these are the qualities that the person is going to be having. So if you see that in this, just like in Surah Asr we had Iman. So again, Iman is touched here. And that was the ground floor in the, I mean, the foundation, not the ground floor, the foundation here. In Surah Asr we have إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات. In Amal al-Salihat we have At al-Mal. And then we have again Aqama as-Salatu At al-Zakat. And then it was Watawasaw bis-Sabr. And you have Watawasaw bis-Sabr also mentioned here. Watawasaw bil-Haq. Scholars say that that is implicit here. They say that is also here, but it's implicit. But as we studied in our last class of Surah Asr, that these are the four things wherein you will find the explanation of only of those four things throughout the Quran. And you can see that even in this ayat, Ayatul Bir, you have the further explanation of the same thing. All right. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He makes us among those people who are muttaqun and those who have these characteristics. اللهم اجعلنا من عبادك الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. اللهم نور قلوبنا بالقرآن وزين أخلاقنا بالقرآن ونجنا من النار بالقرآن وأدخلنا الجنة بالقرآن. آمين يا رب العالمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك ونشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت ونستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم.